respected officials of Navodaya Vidyalaya Samiti, Regional Office Jaipur, principals of different Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya of Jaipur region, venue principal Srimati Sunita Vasist, vice principal Srimati Mamta Sharma and other staff members. Good afternoon to you all. I would like to thank you, Principal Ma'am, Srimati Sunita Vasist, Principal Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalaya, Noltha, to provide me opportunity to speak today in this webinar. I would also like to thank our present government to reinforce the academia to think and remember the contribution of our Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, which is under-researched theme in the modern Indian history. Today, on 21st of October, we gather here to celebrate the 78th anniversary of the formation of first free Indian government. As we all know, on 21st October 1943, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and his followers announced the establishment of the Provisional Government of Free India in Singapore and declared the war on British Empire. He had launched a struggle to free India from British rule by forming the provincial government in exile during the later part of Second World War. Bose was convinced that it was armed struggle that would help the countrymen to achieve freedom. Subhash Chandra Bose is considered the most influential freedom fighter with extraordinary leadership skills and a charismatic orator. He was called Netaji. He raised the first Indian National Army, that is INA or Azad Hind Force, in 1943 and started an armed corps and inspired the thousands of Indian youth to join the struggle for independence against the British colonial rule. His famous slogans were, "Tum mujhe khoon do, main tumhe azadi dunga," "Jai Hind," and "Delhi Chalo." He is known for his militant approach that he used to gain independence and for his socialist policies. Subhash Chandra Bose continues to be a symbol of assertive nationalism. Before coming to the contribution of the Bose in the Indian national movement, I would like to explain how history writings are trying to understand the Indian national movement. There are many scholars, there are many historians who have written on the characteristics and nature of Indian national movement. Professor Sumit Sarkar, who is a very renowned professor and he has been a very renowned Marxist scholar, recognized the legitimacy of nationalism. But he also argued that one should not ignore the internal tension within the national movement. There were two levels of anti-imperialist struggle in India. One is the elite and other is the populist. One need not ignore either of the two. But look at the complex interaction of these two levels. One should look at the complex interaction within the two kinds of movement, which is the anti-imperialist movement. One is the populist and other is the elitist. And these interaction of the two levels, they are being produced, they were creating a pattern of the continuity and change, and they were some are dominant at the one period and the other is dominant on the other period. So, according to Sumit Sarkar, one need to see the internal tension, and even within the national movement, there are many types of, or especially the two types of movement, one is the elite and other is the populist, and both have the different kind of characteristic. There are other scholars and I would like to mention few scholars, then I'll come to why I'm discussing these scholars and how the nationalism of the Subhash Chandra Bose is so different from the Congress nationalism. Vipin Chandra and a few of his colleagues have given Marxist interpretation, and one of famous book by Vipin Chandra is India's Struggle for Freedom, which is published in 1989. And Vipin Chandra and his colleagues, they have argued that Indian national movement was a popular movement of various classes, not exclusively controlled by the bourgeoisie. In colonial India, he talks about the two types of contradiction which can be seen in anti-colonial struggle. One is the primary contradiction that was between the interest of Indian people and those of British rule. But apart from that, there were also several secondary contradictions within the Indian society. Like contradiction between the different classes, castes, religious communities, religious tension, harmony, and even the one caste is opposing to another caste or one class is opposing to the another caste. So there's a class movement, caste movement, and religious communities movement. And as the anti-colonial struggle made progress, the secondary contradictions were compromised in the interest of primary contradiction. In this way, the hegemony of nationalist ideology was established. So here he is talking about the hegemony, and what the Congress is talking about, it's talking about mostly the primary contradiction, which is talking about anti-colonial struggle, rather than the contradiction within the Indian society. But the nationalist movement was not the movement of a single class or caste or religious community. There were many religious groups which have the conflicting interests, had also a need for constant compromise to avoid class, caste, communal conflicts, and they were also brought by the one umbrella group under the one leadership of the Indian National Congress. So we can see, according to Vipin Chandra and other scholars of Marxist interpretation, that's talking about the Indian national movement becomes a people movement where all the secondary conflicts were not satisfactorily resolved. Indian national movement could become, but it could not resolve all the secondary conflicts. In 1982, there was another group of historians, which is called Subaltern Historians Group. Subaltern schools of historians. One of the important pioneer historian of the Subaltern group is Netaji Guha. He edited and published first volume of his book in 1982, and he stated that historiography of Indian nationalism has for a long time was being dominated by elitism. This cannot explain Indian nationalism because it neglects the contribution made by the people on their own. That is, independently of the elite to the making and the development of Indian nationalism. We can also see that what Ranjit Guha is talking about in Indian nationalism, where there are some groups, some people who had individually participated in the Indian national movement, whose contribution is not much remembered as we do find as a collective participation of some of the leaders. Similarly, we can see that the Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose is not being paid much attention, and his contribution is not much being paid attention. So, who took a different path? Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose has taken the different path from Congress and elite anti-colonial nationalism. Bose had its own ideology and tactics to fight against the colonial rule. He moved beyond the leadership of Congress and established his own mode of agitation. We know that initially he was attracted toward the Indian national movement. He participated in the non-cooperation movement with Gandhi, and even he was a member of Indian National Congress. But soon he detached himself with the Indian National Congress, and he took a different path, and he took the militant approach, and then he organized the INA, and then he took the help of the different kinds of powers which were quite active in the Second World War. We'll see this later, but what is more important here, we also need to know how the life of the Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was and how his struggle was. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was born in Cuttack, Odisha on January 23rd in the year 1897 to Janaki Nath Bose and Prabhavati Devi. His father was one of the lawyer in Cuttack, one of the successful lawyer in the Cuttack, and received the title of Rai Bahadur. He later became a member of a Bengal Legislative Council. He was a brilliant student. He ranked second in the matriculation examination. He studied at the Presidency College, Calcutta, from which he was expelled in 1916 for the nationalist activities, for the participation in the nationalist activities. He was also strongly influenced by the Swami Vivekananda's teaching and was known for his patriotic zeal as a student. He also adored the Vivekananda as his spiritual guru. So Vivekananda was his spiritual guru and he followed his teachings. His parents sent him to the University of Cambridge in England to prepare for Indian civil services, which is one of the very much important and prestigious examination of that time. In the year 1920, he passed the ICS examination, but on hearing about the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, which happened in 1919 in Amritsar, he quit his prestigious ICS job and came back to India from England in 1921 to join India's struggle for independence. Soon he left home to become an active member of India's independence movement and joined the Indian National Congress. He came under the influence of Mahatma Gandhi. He joined non-cooperation movement which is started by Mahatma Gandhi. He started this newspaper called Swaraj. In 1924, he became a Calcutta Municipal Corporation member, and he was also sent to prison in Mandalay for the participation in the nationalist activities in 1925. In 1927, he was released from prison and was elected as the president of All India Youth Congress and also a secretary of Indian State Congress. In 1930, he became a mayor of Calcutta and he authored a book called The Indian Struggle, which covers the Indian independence movement from 1920 to 1942. The book was soon banned by the British government because it's considered that it is provocating the Indians to fight against the colonial rule. So that is why there are many books which are being proscribed by the Britishers during that time, and the Subhash Chandra Bose book is one of them.